Today out at 55 Hilda Street, people like Yasmin Abdullahi are remembering Abdi Abdi.
This year, we all collectively remember him. Such a strong human being, a good person in the Muslim community, somebody that we all really looked after without having to necessarily look after him, you know? This man was a big, important part of our building community, and he wasn't somebody who necessarily had to talk a lot to be a part of it. When he first moved in, he was very shy, but when he did try to open up, it would be through like trying to help you with your groceries, or it would be like if he saw you struggling with anything like that, he would immediately jump in, and it was just such an immediate response that like it was always welcomed, and that's why it was such a tragic thing that had happened.
What happened to Abdi, of course, at 55 Hilda happened 1 year ago today.
Abdi Abdi said he looked out over the balcony from his 8th floor apartment Sunday morning to see police kneeling on his brother's head.
I think about 4 police or something on him, and they were punching. They smashing on the ground his head.
Abdi says he shouted at police to tell them his brother has a mental illness.
I have never experienced something like this in my life. Even back home, I come from Africa, I've never seen something like this in my life.
Some residents at the building where Abdi was subdued say racism played a role in the rough arrest. Ottawa Police Chief Charles Bordelot says officers spent much of today reassuring members of Ottawa's Somali community that the force doesn't have a racism problem. Now, Jason Gennaro of the province's Special Investigations Unit says the actions of 2 Ottawa police officers will be probed.
That means they have the same charter rights as any individual who is under criminal suspicion.
The SIU investigation could take months before it's completed. Stu Mills, CBC News, Ottawa.
In fact, the trial of one of the officers accused of killing Abdi is scheduled for February 2019, but the relationship between police and the community was tested by what happened that day. At the time on this program, Matt Scoff, president of the police union, called the implications that race had anything to do with the altercation inappropriate. Are you worried about how this arrest will be perceived?
Oh, I'm worried that the conversation's even occurring, to be quite candid. To suggest that race has an issue in this it's inappropriate. The officers were called to the scene. The officers had to attend. Race in this case is a fact, just like your age, your gender, your height. It doesn't have anything to do with our factors or our decision making. Our decision making is based on our training, and our training has nothing to do with race. That's unfortunate. We're seeing the bleeding of that very difficult rhetoric into Canada now, and I'm very live to it. I can obviously I'm sensitive to it. I'm aware that it's occurring, but it's a 2 separate conversations and not one that's applicable here.
Has anything changed in that relationship between police and the community since then? Ketcia Peters is Community and Police Action Committee Community Co-Chair. COMPAC has been having monthly meetings over the past year talking with police and community members. She's with me now in studio. Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. What goes through your mind when you hear what Matt Scoff had to say 1 year ago? That conversation about race was not applicable here, that he was upset the conversation was even happening. What goes through your mind?
Well, the first thing that goes through my mind is that I think of the large gap that we have in perception when it comes to what the community perceived to be the reality and what the police service perceived the reality to be. So whether or not this race took place in this case, I would prefer to focus on the facts and wait for the justice system to take its course so that we know exactly what took place that day. It's difficult to prove, whether or not race had any implication in this case. It doesn't matter. But it is a bit, disturbing to see that we have such a big gap between the police and the community in terms of relationship.
Because of that gap, those conversations over the past year, I would guess, would have been challenging to moderate, because there's no way that race was not coming up in those conversations.
It always came up. So that's what I mean. Like, what I was encouraged about is the fact that we actually had those difficult conversations. And to me, that's a step forward. Because in the past, the community has always claimed that there was a problem when it came to the way they were being serviced by the Ottawa Police Service. And the fact that we actually were able to talk about the elephant in the room, to me, is a huge step forward.
Can you give me an example of when the elephant came out? That in a conversation where how it was dealt with in that room?
The perfect example of when the conversation came out was when the wristband marketing campaign came about. During that public support of an officer who was legitimately charged with a crime, the community was furious, and they felt that they had to express themselves. So many members of the community actually attended the compact meeting at that time. We don't always get a full audience.
That kind of attendance, yeah, okay.
But we actually had a full audience, at that particular meeting, and the community let the police officers know how they felt, and the fact that the police officers and even the deputy co-chair, the deputy chief Silbel, the co-chair of compact, with me, actually was willing to sit down and actually listen, makes a huge difference. Just listening to the community, whether or not you agree with the way they feel and their perspective, when you want to build a relationship with anyone, even your partner, personally in life, you have to listen to their opinion and how they feel, and you have to actually consider it and take it seriously.
What's an example of one thing that's changed over the last year? I'll ask you later about something that you'd still like to see change, but what's one thing that you think has changed over the course of those meetings?
So over the course of the meeting, the group of Justice for Abdi has requested that the Ottawa Police Service conducted a diversity audit within its organization, so we could better assess what the present culture of the police is. We would like to see the police service to reflect the demographic of our city of Ottawa. So with that audit, we're hoping that we'll have a better picture of what's going on right now within the organization.
And so you would consider that a success, the idea that audit is happening?
Absolutely. So now that we actually are going to have numbers in terms of assessing whether or not there's a real integration of different ethnic group in terms of police officers, because what we talking about here is police culture, absolutely. So we feel that if there was a better, like a community lens within the organization, that anyone within the organization would have identified that campaign as a potential problem for the community police relation, then this would have never occurred. It would have never gone this far.
That could have been flagged
It would have been flagged earlier.
Is there an example of something that you're feeling behind on right now that you think, man, this should be happening quicker, or something you would have liked to see be accomplished in the last year that didn't through those meetings?
I would have liked to see that we were less reactive and more proactive. But that's what community policing is supposed to be about. They're supposed to have the voice of the community at the table, so that they could make their decision and their everyday work in a matter that actually includes the community, and that the community feel like they're being served by them. And we understand that part of their job is to protect and to be, to make sure that people enforce the law. But they serve and protect. So we would like to see them increase that service level to the community.
We're, of course, talking a lot about race here, but did mental health come up in those conversations as well? And in terms of the police changing the culture of how they deal with mental health?
Many discussions around more training for officers and understanding when they're dealing with a situation of a case of an individual who's actually suffering from mental health. Also, the discussion around having more community police officers. So we feel that the police officers who attended the call to service, if they were the community police officers, they would have been already aware of the condition of Abdi. They would know him on a personal level. So that would have made a huge difference in the way that they would have interacted with him. They would have known who he is. They would probably have a conversation that would de-escalate the situation much faster. So these are the conversations we had. We had conversation around...
And the police said that as well? From the police's side, they said that that situation would have been dealt with differently, had they not?
No, they have not admit to that. That's what the community feels. Mm-hmm. So...
I guess that's the challenge, right?
That's the gap.
This gap that's there right now.
And what I like to point out is that we understand the constraint, like the financial and the budgetary constraint that any government organization has. And we want to be cognizant of that. But what we feel when we're promoting community policing is that if we were to invest in those proactive initiatives, then in the long run, these the monetary or even the value satisfaction would be greater.
Ketcia Peters, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Ketcia Peters, Community and Police Action Committee Community Co-Chair. The memorial for Abdi Rahman Abdi will gather in Somerset Square Park in Hintonburg from 6 to 8, rain or shine. Doesn't look like you are going to need an umbrella right now. If you have thoughts on what you heard Ketcia Peters say, let us know all in a day at cbc.ca. You can also always tweet us, CBC, all in a day.